Guys, for any of you I don't know, my name is Bobby Norwood. Been at this here for about 12 years. Husband to one, father to two. Monday morning, I was scrolling through my Google Reader and I came across a headline, "How to Tell If You're an A-Hole." If you need to research the topic, I think you already know the answer. And if you're sitting there, you're already squirming a little bit. Did he just say a-hole? It's Friday morning. Come on, this is a Bible thing. This is a Christian thing. Guys, bear with me. It all ties in. This morning, we are going to talk about minding that rudder that is your tongue so that you don't spend the whole weekend doing online surveys to find out if you're horrible. Stephen Dubner and the guys that wrote the Freakonomics book started a podcast years ago, and they did a really cool series. 5 parts, and it was called The Secret Life of a CEO. And it was exploring the path to, through, and eventually out of the fanciest business card there is. The episodes had titles like How to Get the Job, It's Your Problem Now, It's a Lonely Place, and The Aftermath. The takeaway from the entire 5-part series, particularly from Indra Nooyi from PepsiCo and Richard Branson over at Virgin Global, was I hire the smartest people I can possibly find, and I listen to them. Nooyi was speaking about her first couple of days on the job, and she said, when you become CEO overnight, you are the person calling all the shots. You're responsible for making sure you get all the information from the company, crystallize it down to simple ideas, and then tell the organization what to do. What was the last thing she did? Speak. Tell people what to do. She listens. She gathers information. A couple of years into her term at PepsiCo, a famous activist investor named Nelson Peltz bought enough shares to buy himself a board seat. And Nooyi again speaking about dealing with advice that she wasn't sure she wanted and wasn't sure she trusted. She says, my entire net worth is tied up in PepsiCo. And if somebody, as an activist, came into the company and suggested we do things differently, we study every idea very, very carefully. Because if they have an idea for us to run the company better, than we are, we'll incorporate it. But if their idea has more risk than upside, then we have to worry about the company. Here you see open ears, absent pride of authorship. It's actually a fairly biblical view of leadership, even though I don't believe she realizes that. To view yourself as a resource to your people rather than an authority over them. So speaking of hiring and listening to the smartest people, who are the smartest people? And are we listening to them, or are we listening to anyone at all? If you're new to the Bible, old to the Bible, or estranged from the Bible, Proverbs is one of the very few places that you can go every single day and find something immediately applicable. What Solomon, come on, what's the job title? What's he known as? The wisest man that ever lived. What he lacks in nuance and innuendo, he more than makes up for in unambiguous and actionable wisdom. Anyone who knows me is going to see the immediate irony that I'm the guy speaking from Proverbs 10. I can see the eye rolls behind the face masks from friends in the room when they read things like, he who holds his tongue is wise. Because the next thing going through their head is, surely he'll talk about something else. I will not, and don't call me Shirley. The most wonderful part of the Bible is the might of God on display right alongside his grace and mercy. Save for a carpenter from Nazareth, he consistently accomplishes the amazing and impossible with assistance from deeply flawed people that were created in his image. Guys, that's us. So diving into Proverbs 10, I'm going to stitch some verses together. I'm going to combine 8, 11, 19, 25, and 29. So let's see how this reads. The wise in heart accept commands. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life. He who holds his tongue is wise. The lips of the righteous nourish many. When the storm has swept by, the wicked are gone, and the righteous stand firm forever. The way of the Lord is a refuge for the righteous. And from this, we're going to unpack 3 simple things. Can you listen? Can you speak truth? What happens when you do? Our friend Colin White, right over here, morning Colin, gave a talk here last year that really stuck with me. And he talked about doing the hard thing first. So let's do that. The wise in heart accept commands. This is the listening part of our chat today. And it's particularly the hardest part of listening. Now, I have no doubt that online and all around me, you mature, well-adjusted, Christ-following men accept criticism and direction with a smile on your face and gratitude in your heart. I don't. I never have. However, if we're here together in community every Friday to be the leaders that God created us to be, then we have to listen to criticism. We have to take direction. Our presence here says we're actually looking for that. This is a community of ambition, but it often feels antithetical to leadership to sit back, shut your mouth, and open your ears. 10 years ago, a man at my table who now leads his own table, Ben Bullock, gave me a lesson in this. He called me on a Friday evening to let me know that he was concerned. He told me he knew the man that I wanted to be, but he was watching the man that I was. And the reality of my life was trending in a very different direction than I wanted it to. And perhaps that's closer to it was trending in no direction. And he was right. And I told him I was grateful. And I wasn't. But it sank in. And over time, I look back on this phone call 10 years later, and I'm telling you about it now because it was a turning point in my life. I heard what he said and the love that he shared it with. So what about you guys? How are you with correction? If someone tells you your work product could be better, how do you feel? If you're told that your health could improve, how do you feel?
Inferior.
If you're told you could be a better husband, a better father, a better friend, look, it's Bobby's stunt speech again, how do you feel? Solomon says that we should take this guidance as an opportunity. I think a lot of men are defensive by nature, but we can fight that. Our desire to know God's wisdom can overcome our insecurities. But if you're like me, I'm always going to fight a battle between growth and my ego. Still on listening, but what's your posture in a conversation where you aren't on the topic? Too often I find myself listening to speak. We should listen to hear, we should listen to learn. I can't tell you how many times I have a point to make that's important to me, that's brilliant in my head, and then I lob it into the conversation and realize it was not germane to anything that was on that table. Jumping up to verse 11, what we all really want is Solomon's mouth of the righteous that's a fountain of life. And the quickest way to purify the intention and quality of the words that leave your mouth is to listen to what's actually said and then react to that. Some of Jesus' greatest teachings begin with the Son of God quietly listening and then sharing the wisdom of his Father. Think about the conversation he has in John 4 next to a well with a Samaritan woman. He asks a very simple question. He asks her for a drink. And then he listens. She effectively talks politics. And before she knows it, he's talking about the living water that will well up in each of us and give us eternal life. The words of the righteous are a fountain of life indeed. Jesus was a good Jew and he knew the words of Solomon. He showed us how to apply them. I think the ultimate training ground for the wisdom of Solomon in Proverbs 10 is right in front of us. It was on that laptop, it is on this iPad, and a lot of you are staring right at it, and it is Zoom. Think about every chaotic Zoom call that you have had in these last many months. What if we all approached them thinking, he who holds his tongue is wise. The lips of the righteous will nourish many. Regardless of your station in life, God calls and created you to lead. But you can't do it if you aren't first a careful observer and an ambitious listener. On my next Zoom call, I'm going to actually listen to every word of it. I'm going to stay off my phone. I'm not going to multitask. I won't read emails. I won't send text messages. I'm not going to use Instagram to poke fun at the ridiculous things that my kids do every day. And I won't talk just to pop my ugly mug into the big box. So join me. Let's all hold our tongues. Let's take it in. Let's respond with lips that nourish many, because we spend most of our day in a great place to practice restraint. And then for the fun part, we actually get to turn off the phone, close the laptop, and take it home. I don't know anything that drives connection quite like empathy. It's a vulnerable place to put yourself, with absolutely no expectation of a particular response or reward. Offer your wife and kids your ear, and then just wait. If you need a model for it, look through the Gospels and watch Jesus sitting on the ground, eating, chatting, and listening to the dregs of biblical society. Tax collectors, prostitutes, widows, Gentiles, so on. His message to all of them was simple. I'm here for each and every one of you. I see you. I hear you. If he can do that for the most socially radioactive members of his community, it's not a huge ask for each of us to do that for the people that matter the most. Over time, we'll develop the ability to do this with coworkers, with friends, with perfect strangers. And in time, with diligence, the wisdom of God will actually flow right through us. And I want to share some words that I read this Wednesday that came back to me yesterday afternoon. This is from Oswald Chambers. He wrote a daily devotional called My Utmost for His Highest. So for September 2nd, he's referencing John 7:38. And he says, Jesus did not say, he who believes in me will realize all the blessings of the fullness of God. But in essence, he who believes in me will have everything he receives escape out of him. The Lord's teaching was always anti-self-realization. His purpose is not the development of a person. His purpose is to make a person exactly like himself. And the Son of God is characterized by self-expenditure. If we believe in Jesus, it is not what we gain, but what he pours through us that really counts. God's purpose is not simply to make us beautiful, plump grapes, but to make us grapes so that he may squeeze the sweetness out of us. Our spiritual life cannot be measured by success as the world measures it, but only what God pours through us, and we cannot measure that at all. So back to John 38, which in his translation read, he who believes in me, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. And hundreds of lives will be continually refreshed. Now is the time for us to break the flask of our lives and stop seeking our own satisfaction and pour out our lives before him. Our Lord is asking us who will do it for him. It's good stuff for a guy named Oswald. In our room, in your home, in your office, everywhere you go, our world right now is in a storm. But Solomon tells us where the wisdom of God will stand in the storm. He says, when the storm is swept by, the wicked are gone, but the righteous stand firm forever. The way of the Lord is a refuge for the righteous. So before I close, let's circle all the way back to where I started, the job of the CEO. Sometimes leadership is a lonely place. And you don't have to be leading a Fortune 50 company to get that feeling. So who do you turn to? Who do you reach out to when you feel like there's no one to listen? Well, there's this group of guys that meets Friday morning at 1277, shameless plug. But remember, ultimately, our God works for free, and you don't have to make an appointment. Prayer is for us. It's not for him. You're not going to impress God. We're not impressing. He's God. So if you're stuck, if you're scared, if you're weak, reach for biblical wisdom and hit your knees. Guys, I'll tell you the truth. This morning, getting ready for it, everything about this was very difficult for me. But it's also been very special. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to stand up here and read what amounted to marching orders to me and the dad and the husband that I would be. So let's have prayer. Let y'all get down to business at your tables. Lord, make us righteous. Show us your way. Close our mouths. Open our ears. Fill our hearts. You are our refuge. Amen.
Amen.